ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming and sharing this with us this evening. Now, my job for 10-15 minutes is to talk a little bit about Botswana tourism, and obviously those who know Botswana tourism know you can't fit it into 10-15 minutes. In my background, I've been living and working in Botswana for much of the last 15 years. One of the safest, most stable countries I've had the privilege of having lived in. And very much so, obviously we have the great fortune that we are underpinned by a wonderful diamond industry. This stone here, about the size of a tangerine, was pulled out of the ground in, I think, around about 2017, Lesedi La Rona. And imagine what you could have done with this during COVID, for those of us who were in tourism. Now, as I said, the thing is, jokes aside about the diamonds, it has underpinned a very successful economy that has allowed us to create the sustainable tourism model that has already been alluded to. However, before I go on to tourism itself, there's one thing that I'd be very drifted. I didn't talk about very quickly Botswana beef. And the reason I say this is because, quite simply, Botswana beef is the best beef in the world. And I just want to put that out there so that... So when you're thinking about Botswana, it's diamonds, and just don't forget the beef. Anyway, that aside, and this, you know that Botswana beef is famous because I got this photograph from the very well internationally renowned magazine Scottish Farmers Weekly. So it is talk of all over the world. Anyway, but to Botswana, this is a country where we have pretty well a third of the landmass under protected areas. On the right there are a list of some of the national parks, game reserves, the private concessions, forest reserve, game management areas, and all these things that go into making what is a really truly amazing sustainability model. Now, again, and with that, 40, 50, 60 years of doing this gives us what can only be described as quite an enviable wildlife product, and it's something on which we base our tourism on. However, as what I'm going to try and focus more on is a little bit beyond that. But like I said, we have, probably 120 plus, 170 rather, plus mammal species. I have 400 plus bird species there, but coming this time of year when the migrants arrive, that shoots up quite significantly. We've got 2 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. That's the Dula Hills and, of course, the Okavango Delta. And then lately, Cradle of Humankind. Now, obviously, South Africa, Morocco, Ethiopia, everybody's laid claim to this in one way or the other, so it's our turn, and I will come to why. But the key point of putting that point in there is that Botswana is famous for its wildlife, but it's so much more than that. So yeah, Botswana are about the size of Texas or France, and like I said, we have the national parks conveniently spread throughout the country with really, really easy access, whether you're driving, whether you're flying. Some people I've even seen cycling it. Not something I advise in the national parks, but you have an available tourism product that is easily accessible. Now, yes, we do have a reputation for being particularly cheap. But Botswana we do have a reputation for price. But there's a very big difference between price and value. And this is what really underpins what Botswana tourism is about. Now, obviously, when you think of Botswana, one of the first things you think, for those who've been there, who may well have seen the Ellies floating their way across the Chobe River, for those who've been down to the Kwando area, for those who've been into the Delta. And this basically speaks to the success of the conservation model. Do we get it right all the time? Of course not. But we're continually striving to make it better and to do a better job with it. And like I said, for those who haven't yet had the pleasure of seeing that, then now's the time, especially because BCTE, the trade show which was just alluded to, which is, I have to say, amongst one of the best trade shows on the calendar, that takes place right on next to here. And again, throughout the parks, throughout the national parks, and the game reserves and game management areas, we have such a breadth of wildlife Whether it's predators you're looking for, whether it's the big herbivores, whether you like frogs, you like insects, you like dragonflies. Anything you can look for, you can pretty well find it in Botswana. Now, obviously, perhaps the most famous part of the country, there it is, UNESCO World Heritage Site number 1000, the Delta. Now, obviously, for those who, many of you here who I know here tonight, you guys who do probably know more than I do on this, so I will tread carefully here. But what I would say is this. Now, obviously, when you're sending your guests to Botswana, especially if they're coming for the first time, if you send them to Botswana, you don't send them to the Delta, there's a good chance they're going to get a little bit grumpy. But what I want to say is there is so much more that you can build on top of this. Now, the Delta is a story in itself. Every year, on average, we get approximately 11 cubic kilometers of water coming down, out, up there, down through the Kabango and Kwito rivers that you can see there, and then into the Delta, reaching high flood around about July and August. And like I said, we could spend half a day talking about this quite happily, the geology, the hydrology, the wildlife, the bird life, everything that's there. But I think what I want to say about this is that, yes, it is a linchpin of what we do in our tourism product, but make it the foundation so you can spread the branches from there. Now, like I said, when I say that about the Delta, like I said, I've obviously been very privileged to live and work there for well over a decade and a half. And the stories and everything that you get out of these places are truly amazing. Now, one thing is worth noting, because I've had this discussion with a lot of colleagues, some that are here tonight. The Delta is a fickle mistress, always in a state of flux. Some years we get a lot of rain, some years we don't. But Botswana is a country of silver linings. And for those who do sell Botswana, maybe you think, well, this year, for example, it didn't rain so much. Perhaps next year with the El Nino weather pattern coming, it may not rain as much again. But there's always a silver lining. For example, if you're concerned that the Delta water is coming up too slow, it's dropping too fast, then you call us up. Any of the colleagues who are here tonight, they'll be able to tell you. For example, at a high Delta flood, which makes the Delta look truly beautiful, you have about 500 lions, plus minus. You drop that water down low, you're looking up to about 700 lions. So there's always a silver lining to all of these things. So when you all are organising these trips for your guests, for your clients, make sure you're talking to us. We can give you the heads up on what's going on and why the current situation is the best situation they could possibly find. But that being said, I want to put all the famous bits, the Chobe, the Linyanti, the Delta, I want to put those aside for the majority of this, because there is so much more to Botswana, and this is really important, because every year in, year out, without fail, people are telling me there's no space in the Delta, and can't get this and can't get that. And there's so much more. You turning your itineraries around and expanding the horizons of your clients. Take Sedilla Hills, for example, UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2002. It's got evidence of human survival stories living there for the best part of 100,000 years. 4,500 cave paintings spread over just a few kilometers squared. Again, it's an amazing place and easily accessible. The same goes for the Pans. Now, this is one of my favorite playgrounds. Ngaipan and Makarikari. Now, again, for those in the know, you'll know that it's the remnants of a great super lake the size of Switzerland. And yes, we have the animals. We have the meerkat experience. We have the desert-adapted species. We have the black maned lions. We have the ghost elephants, the honey badgers, all those things. But on top of that, and this is where, from both sides, for our colleagues in the travel industry, if you want to make a truly special experience, you need to start looking to these places. For colleagues in the media, if you want to start writing truly novel, original, special stuff, these are, again, the places to look to. This, for example, is almost like a time capsule. We've got evidence of what's been going on there for 10, 20 years, 20,000 years in the past, literally just lying on the ground. And part of that experience, yes, you come down here, you can see the animals, but you can then get involved in the anthropology, the geology, the hydrology, the ethnoastronomy, one of my favourite things. And this is when the place really comes alive. That Botswana is so much more than the really amazing animals that we have. That's actually my niece and nephew when they were growing up in Botswana. And at one point, I think this is a very important point, because I was reading a study the other day, and it said that at the moment, approximately about a third of humankind, humankind, because of light pollution, cannot see the Milky Way on a day-to-day basis. Now that sounds like quite a lot, but then you come to Europe, and you'll find that that goes up to about 60%. 60% of us in Europe cannot see the Milky Way if we step outside our houses. You go to America, that's up to 80%. Okay? Almost 80% of Americans cannot see the Milky Way. That is what this is here for. I mean, virtually anywhere. Even when I was living on my house in the outskirts of Man, I could see for miles. You go to Naipan, you go to the Kalahari, you can pretty well see to the end of the universe. And I tell you, if you've got a $500 an hour shrink, can that and come here. And I say to a degree of seriousness, actually, because to a lot of people, the Milky Way, to a lot of people, what the Milky Way is 200 million stars spread out across the sky. But to many people there, what it also is the ashes of a fire that a girl picked up to throw into the sky to show her father the way home. And it's these stories and these lives, these past lives, that really bring Botswana to life over and above the amazing animals that we have. And on top of that, we've got the zebra migration. This is Africa's longest migration. And it's something we've only really been studying in the last 10, 15 years. We've got a good friend who's got the best job title in the world. She's a doctor of zebras. And it's an amazing job title. But this again, Botswana has something for all seasons. It's a year-round destination. Yeah, we talk about it rains. Oh, it rains, I'm not going to see any animals. Absolute nonsense. If you have that quandary, call me up and I will tell you why it's not the case. But these patterns you see here marked on the map are what we're beginning to find out about the zebra migration. For the zebra migration coming down from Namibia, that's a 400-kilometer round migration, year in, year out. And they talk about memory of an elephant. But the memory of a zebra is actually really quite impressive as well. Now, moving on, where am I going? Right, Kalahari. And again, the same, going into the Kalahari. If you want to, I don't know if any of you have been to Wyoming, Utah, these big open spaces, you can begin to imagine where this starts. Stand on the deck at Taupan Camp in the Kalahari, and you can pretty well see the horizon bend. And this is why these are places that, yeah, you're going to send your clients to the Delta, you're going to send them to the Nyantis, to Chobe. But if you want to truly give them a massively rounded experience and the surprise they never expected, it's the Pans, it's the Kalahari, it's the Kgalagadi, it's down into the Tuli block as well. And with all these places, the more further afield you look, the more you can offer them in terms of whether it's game drives, makoros, boats, walking, cycling, horse riding, fishing. The list goes on and on and on. And that's why I encourage you to try and think outside the box and further than what you might normally do. As Botswana, I mean, this is the access into the Tuli block, but Botswana itself, accessible Man, Kasane, Gabs, through Livingston, Vic Falls. There's so many ways now, and there are new airlines coming in, and we're creating new routes, and it's making it such a more accessible destination, whereas 6, 7, 8 years in the past, we were busy getting a bit grumpy about the fact that there weren't very many flights going in there. And I think with that as well, I mean, we alluded to it earlier, we've got our wildlife tourism, but there is so much more. We've got Gaborone, we've got Makari Epic, the Kawa June Challenge, we've got the Toyota June Race. There's so many things going on in Botswana that if you look at the right time of the year, you can say to the client, well, yeah, we're going to go and see all this stuff, and this is very famous and stuff, but do you want to do something nobody's ever done before? And that's when you start looking at this stuff. Go and ride a donkey cart in Man, best taxi there is. I'll tell you, it is truly an amazing experience, and it's those little things that whether you're sending people to Botswana as travel agent tour operators, or whether it's somebody you're writing about Botswana for a media magazine, whatever it is, if you need the new angle, Botswana always has something, and there's plenty of stuff that's never been focused on before. The other thing as well, I'd say, and especially for those who and our travel colleagues who are working with us in Botswana, take a look to see how you can also help positive impact through what you're doing in Botswana. I mean, these are just ones I pulled some examples, and there's dozens of how the companies, how the tourism dollars are helping on the ground. Say perhaps one of the more famous ones, a small thing called Mummy's Angels, set up by a group of mothers and men who provide the essentials to new mothers who can't afford them themselves. And they've helped, in the last 2-3 years, about 300 new mothers. And that is a huge thing. It sounds perhaps pretty paltry where I'm standing on the stage, but it is a huge thing to give somebody that start in life. So I would encourage you as well, when you're working with the guys on the ground, my fellow operators on the ground, to find out how you can help, whether your guests are interested to help. There's obviously no obligation to this, but the more we can give back, the more everybody wants to save it for the next generation. And ultimately, yeah, I mean, just examples here, you know, pangolin rescue, learn to play, teaching new kids new stuff, teaching conservation, all these things. And what we're doing as well a lot is creating the next generation of mini conservationists. Because if we can get people to, as soon as they're walking, to love their own environment, then we win for the next 10, 20, 30, 50 years. Now, in the end, the only thing I can recommend to you from what I've said here is that when you come to Botswana, not if, when you come to Botswana, take a moment, sit down in the evening once you've had your first gin and you know everything's looking pretty rosy, and just sit away from everybody. This is what I always say to people when they start the safari: sit away from everybody quietly. You know, kick your shoes off, presuming there's no scorpions. I have stories about that. But kick your shoes off, lean back in your chair, and just stare at the sky. Because I tell you this, if we've been through a bit of a shocker in the last 2-3 years, I think we all recognise that. But if you stick your head back and look to the end of the universe, it really helps. It really helps balance things out. So, like I said, Botswana is, for me, it's been my home for a long time, and it is really a truly special place. I say that from the heart. And whatever you guys need, you lean on us. That's what we're here for. Whether it's BTO, whether it's myself, whether it's my colleagues in the industry, we do it because we love it. I mean, look, for those in tourism, you don't do it for the money, do you? But really, Botswana is for everybody. It's a first destination, it's a second destination, so on, so on, so on, so on. And like I said, for all the stresses we, suffer in daily life, when it comes to Botswana, all we have to do is sit back and look up. Yeah. Thank you.